Let's talk Champions Cup knockout rugby then. Round of 16 is coming up. I've got some predictions on the fixtures, some of the runners and riders, a quick look at the selections with an amazing weekend of rugby ahead. Now, I have shared some misgivings about the format of the competition, the feeling of prestige that it currently has, how difficult it is for some teams to manage their resources domestically and in the Champions Cup. But there's no getting around it. This is one of my favourite weekends of the season, this and next weekend, with the round of 16 and the quarter final. And when you add the Challenge Cup into the mix, it means you have got back-to-back rugby, nothing but, and I'm going to be all over it, despite the fact that my body clock is completely shot. It's first thing in the morning here in California. It doesn't get much more America than this, does it? Doing a video from the porch. There you go. But yeah, my body clock's shot. But in only a couple of hours' time, the rugby gets underway in Northampton. So I thought I would just go over some of the fixtures. Leave me your thoughts in the comments down below. I'll make my predictions. You tell me yours. That is the 16 teams that have made it to the elite tier competition. And the competition that I still think is as good as club rugby gets anywhere in the world, this competition. And particularly the further down the road you get, it's a very, very special competition. And it gets underway, well, as I record this, hold on, how many hours am I? About like 3 hours from when I record this. So the game might have already happened by the time you're watching this. So I won't labour too long on Northampton against Claremont. This is a fixture that we've seen a bunch of times down the years. In pool stages in this competition, it's always been the home team that wins. And French teams traditionally don't travel well. Claremont definitely fall into that camp. In knockout games, Claremont have got the upper hand, having won 2 of the games that they've played in the knockouts previously, but it was a while ago, and Claremont are in a period of flux. There's a regime change in the air. They could be getting a new head coach. Christophe Urios could be booted out. They're not doing well in the top 14. They're a bit clunky when they play. They've got some really ageing players, some good young players, but it's not coming together very well. But they got their first win in 2 months in last weekend when they played La Rochelle, and they've kept a very similar team from that side. So they're coming. They mean business in this one, despite the fact I think they're probably taking the top 14 as their number 1 priority. Northampton Saints, they lack a little bit of power up front. They're without a couple of key men, but they've still got a load of class, especially behind. Can they match Claremont's firepower up front? I think they can, and I think they probably will. I'm going to go for Northampton Saints by maybe less than a score. Although I think this is one of those ones that could be quite an interesting matchup. Next up, into tomorrow then, and the early kickoff, Stade Toulonnais against Saracens. 2 former winners, 2 teams that have faced each other in the final of this competition. I remember that amazing one where Johnny Wilkinson and Owen Farrell were, it was like a passing of the torch, but Johnny Wilkinson had the magic on that day. But the Saracens went on to win tournaments. Saracens, as has been talked about a lot, are they disrespecting the competition by not sending their England internationals and by focusing on the Premiership? I understand the challenge. They've still got a really, really good team. Let's just not make any mistakes about that. Look at their back row. Theo McFarland, Andy Christie, Juan Martin Gonzalez. They've got 7 internationals in their pack. The issue for Saracens is behind the scrum. They just don't have it, especially without Elliot Daly as well. That's a big blow. They've picked Premiership over the Champions Cup for him, or that they've had to make that choice. They've still got a lot of class. And old Andy Good, Alex Good, not Andy Good, showing if he's still got it, but he's up against Villiers, Jaminet. I can only see this going Toulon's way by at least a couple of scores. I'll say Toulon by 15, but Saracens are good, and they could make that interesting. Next up, Leinster against Quins. And I tell you what, I looked at Quinn's selection. They're just going for it, which is when Quins are at their most dangerous, as we've seen against Bordeaux last year in the quarter-final stage when they got a surprise victory. They've got it in their locker. They can do it. They have gone for Chandler Cunningham South in the second row. They've got Will Evans at 7, so they've gone for that jackal threat with Kenningham and Evans to try and slow down Leinster's ball. And I think they're just going to roll the dice and have a crack and try and score some points. We'll see if they can match the power of Leinster. That pack for Leinster, RG Sneijman, fine, they don't have James Ryan, but they've got a proper team. That is serious flex from Leinster when you look at that pack, and I think that they will win again by a couple of scores. I think Quins could keep it interesting for 50 minutes, and I expect Leinster to drop the hammer in the last quarter and win that one. Castra versus Benetton. This is one of the hardest ones to pick. Now, Castra this season have not been beaten once at home. They are unbeaten at the Stade Pierre Fabre, and their fans are wild. The atmosphere is going to be massive. They're a small club in the top 14 relatively. They have won the top 14 before, but when I say small club, I mean it's a small town and they have a smaller budget than many other clubs. And what they managed to do with that budget is amazing. They pride themselves on hard work first, and you see that, but they've got some class as well on top. Kokaji in the centre is awesome. Arata at scrum half, serious player. But they're up against Benetton, who are basically Italy in club colours. Tommaso Menoncello, Juan Ignacio Brex, they can bring it. I don't know if Benetton are going to be the team that's going to break Castra's unbeaten home record, but they can. They've shown that they've got big performances in their locker. I think it's going to be close. Could be within a score. I'm going to go Castra just. But that's one of the more interesting, from a result point of view, games to watch this weekend. So is La Rochelle against Munster. I cannot wait for this game. It is the Ronan O'Gara Bowl. He won it as a player with Munster. He's won it twice as a head coach with La Rochelle. But La Rochelle are in a funny place right now. They're in a period of flux. They are not playing particularly well, not doing well in the top 14, and they need to have a lot of turnover. They've signed David Niniashvili and Nolan Legarrec for next season. So I think that's a recognition from Ronan O'Gara that they have to score more points. And they're quite a British and Irish traditional style of rugby at La Rochelle. It's very physical, big men. They've still got Antonio and Skelton, Levani Bottia. They've got massive men, but it's a bit too structured and they need to loosen it up. And actually, that's where Munster have got better. And I do think Craig Casey, Jack Crowley, massive game for them. I think Munster might actually have a better backline or a more fluent backline than La Rochelle do. So I think Munster are going to be dangerous. The big question is, can they live with the heat that La Rochelle bring up front? Massive, massive game for Tyg Byrne and Jean Klein in the second row. They're going to have to do so much donkey work to win the ball. I think this is on a knife edge, this game. I'm going to go La Rochelle by just a couple of points, but I could absolutely see Munster winning. Emotion is going to play a massive part in that game. Cannot wait for it. Glasgow-Leicester. 5 years almost to the day since Glasgow Warriors got to their first ever Champions Cup quarter-final, and they did it in the most emphatic fashion. I remember this game. They won 43-0 away at Leicester. 43-0. And they've kicked on since then. They've won the URC. They've been a team that everyone was saying could go on and win the Champions Cup. They will be slightly disappointed they didn't seed ever so slightly higher, but man, they've got a shot. They've got a proper shot, and no George Martin, no Ollie Chesham, no Joe Hayes for Leicester Tigers, maybe lacking a bit of oomph in the pack, but then so are Glasgow because they've got no Jack Dempsey, no Scott Cummings, and Rory Darge is on the bench. So I think Glasgow at home will have too much. Again, I think this could be closer. I've gone for Glasgow by 15. I think if that happens, it will be bang, bang, couple of late scores for Glasgow and game over. And then we move on to the two games on Sunday. Probably on paper at least, the biggest mismatches of the weekend. The two French giants, Bordeaux and Toulouse, against sides from England and in the case of Ulster, from Northern Ireland as well, or Ireland, north and south. And we've seen this fixture before, and it did not go well for Ulster. And Bordeaux, a bit of a flex from them, isn't it? They've rested Le Bit-Bip, they've rested Jalabert, they've rested Gazzotti and others. So they are rotating their squad, fully believing they're in the quarterfinals, and they maybe want those players fresh, because Louis Bielbire hasn't had a break since the Six Nations. He's just rolled straight on through. So yeah, a little bit of a flex there, but I think it's going to be a calculated, well, it's not even a risk really, is it? I don't know. I think they're going to win handsomely. The only thing is, because it's knockout rugby and points difference isn't a factor for seeding, tries scored, doesn't matter. If Bordeaux get out to a lead, I can see them just taking their foot off the gas a little bit and starting to mentally even start thinking about next week. before the game's actually done. So maybe 30 points might be a little bit more. Maybe it'll be 20, but it's going to be a Bordeaux win. And I've gone for home wins all the way through so far. And I don't think Toulouse is going to be any different. I think Toulouse will win by maybe 20 points. Again, I could see them ringing the changes and maybe taking their foot off the gas a little bit with a massive game against Toulon or Saracens next week for Stade Toulousain if they were to beat Sale Sharks. Sale Sharks are good though. I tell you what, that battle, double curry against Jack Willis and Francois Crawl, that I would pay to watch that alone. Those flankers, that is absolutely elite class. And Jack Willis up against the two Curries, really interesting. And don't forget the backdrop. There's a lot been talked about Jack Willis and other players playing in France. Sorry, I just realised I hope it's all right to watch. I'm in the shade a little bit. Yeah, for the British and Irish Lions, Andy Farrell will 100% be watching this one. But I remember Toulouse have played Sale a few times, and the power that Toulouse have, the ability to just in one moment just bosh, 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 try, game over. That's what Toulouse bring. And I don't think Sale, their midfield worries me. And it's a massive game for Massey White. If he can take a step up against Peter Aki and Pierre-Louis Barassi, huge. But yeah, I can only see that going one way. Which means, I think my predictions are all home wins. I'd like to see an away win. I think the most likely places that's going to happen is Clermont and Benetton in that little bracket. And Saracens could, but Munster, probably Benetton and Munster are my two most likely away wins. If it goes with my predictions, it means you've got 4 French teams on the left-hand side of the draw. And next week it'll be Bordeaux against La Rochelle and Toulon against Toulouse. They will be massive occasions, whoever's involved. And on the other side, Leinster, Glasgow is URC big hitters going head-to-head if they both come through their games. And Northampton against Castres. Interesting. There's some big old fixtures next week going to be lined up. I think the quarterfinals will be the best weekend of rugby because you will start getting best v best, big team v big team, which again comes back to, if I am just going to end on a sort of constructive thought, is that maybe starting at the quarterfinal in the knockout stages would be better. There would be fewer games, but the games would be massive. I hope we don't see too many blowout victories this weekend. I think there might be a few, but equally there's a few that are on a knife edge. I'm going to be setting my alarm. I don't know what time. So it's like 7 a.m. at the minute where I am. I don't know where my head's at. I'll be watching the rugby and I'll be back on the channel soon. So if you appreciate the content, hit subscribe. I'll see you on the next one.